Uniting South Sudan's voices. iRadio, trusted, connected, empowered.
Tuned in and locked on to the eye of South Sudan, and it's a brand new dawn.
Welcome back again after the news. We are still continuing here with the second hour of the Dawn show for this Wednesday, and it's 10 minutes after 7. We shall be continuing here, and we are glad that we have reached to this time so that we begin our second discussion this morning. The topic that we are going to discuss this morning is the South Sudan government has condemned the killing of nearly 200 people in a Biemnam in Ruing administrative area, describing the attack as cowardly act and violence against civilian and public officials. Authorities in Rueng administrative area confirm that at least 169 people lost their lives, while more than 68 others sustained injuries. We shall be going for a short report that was prepared by our colleague Madrama James, and then we come back after the report.
The chief administrator of the Abia administrative area said 7 out of 8 patients receiving treatment have died following a deadly attack on Sunday morning in Abiemnom County, Rueng administrative area. Justice Charles Abiy Jok made the remarks to the South Sudan Broadcasting Corporation after conducting a field visit to Amitbeg Referral Hospital, which is managed by Medicine Sans Frontiers MSF. The victims include both the civilians and members of the law enforcement. Among those killed in the assault were the commissioner of Awerping County and the executive director of Abiemnom County.
We came to Amitbeg Hospital to come and see the situation of the wounded people who were shot yesterday in the Abiemnom incident. The number of people that have arrived to this hospital so far is 80 patients. Among them we have lost 7 and 73 are still ongoing treatment. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Amitbeg Hospital being managed and operated by MSF. They have done a very great job. The challenge is overwhelming. As you can see, the hospital is small and the capacity is also limited, but despite that they have done their level best. And the injuries are really severe. A number of them are in a critical condition so far.
In an official statement issued Monday, the government stated that such act undermine national peace, stability, and ongoing reconciliation efforts. Security organs have been directed to restore order in the area and conduct a thorough investigation to identify and hold the perpetrators accountable under the law. The government urged all communities to remain calm and refrain from retaliatory violence, emphasizing that authorities are working to stabilize the situation and ensure the protection of all civilians in the region. For iRadio, I am Madrama James.
Thank you مدرمة جيمس. ده كان زميلنا مدرمة جيمس في ريبورت أو في التقرير البسيط حول آخر التطورات في منطقة بتاعت أو آخر الهجوم على المنطقة بتاع بيمنم، ويمكن الجرحى كان نقولهم من بيمنم جابهم في أبيي، وإحنا سمينا برضو صوت بتاع رئيس إدارية بتاع أبيي. وعشان ما نناقش الموضوع ده إحنا يعني مبسوطين في هذا الصباح انه ينضم علينا داخل في الاستوديو الاستاذ جيمس بوبويا. and he's the CEO of the Institute for Policy Policy and Research هنا في داخل الاستوديو. He's also a civil activist. Boboya, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I'm happy to be back and talking to the people of South Sudan.
Okay, how did you receive this particular incident that we were talking about as a civil activist?
You know, it's appalling, and just I want to say, I'm in solidarity with the people of Abiy with what has happened. It's really shocking to the eyes of the civil society and people like me, and to hear again that there are crises in the region, and those crises would have been more avoidable. Yeah. And really very sad to hear people have died. I'm shocked to hear that people have been wounded, and even some of those who are wounded are critical, that cannot, they're not able to even receive proper care. And of course, it's now been the responsibility of NGOs instead of government taking care of some of those people. So it's really sad to not only that region, but of course to many regions in South Sudan that are experiencing conflicts and intercommunal situations that really tear the country apart. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And do we have any further, data? Because I mean, the report we have is the information lately up to yesterday, and in such incidences, like some critical injuries that are in the hospital, at times they lose their life due to maybe lack of medication or lack of proper treatment, and they just add it to the death toll at times.
Yeah, this is one of the biggest issues, not only this incident, in terms of, one of the principles of good governance is responsiveness. We've seen the government at national level responding in terms of condemning and issuing a press statement. They're supposed to have a role in terms of really helping, especially those who are wounded, to be evacuated to proper and better health facilities. That has not happened. Usually what happens is that MSF or IICRC or another international organizations that has resources and transportation means are the ones that take the responsibility to transport some of these people who are wounded to a better facilities. For example, here in Juba or Boro Hospital or another hospital within the region, could be even WOW or something like that. But even some of those health facilities are not properly equipped, and therefore it becomes more problematic in terms of thinking about transporting people from either a medevac or case evacuation. So I think that is one thing that we've seen, that lack of responsibility from governments at national level and also from the state, curtail the ability of, preventing further deaths in situations such as the one of Abiy. Of course, we've heard from the local authorities, praising the international NGOs for having responded positively, and also talking about the facilities not even more adequate enough to be able to respond to that process. So I think from the responsive perspective, we still wanted to, say that something is not adequately being done from the government perspective.
So issuing a statement alone is not enough?
It's not. I mean, we want to see a matured government. For us working in civil society or from international NGOs or national NGOs, we have monitoring, evaluations and learning, right? So we're using the learning part of that process to begin to think about what are the things that goes wrong, how do we address some of those issues, because conflict and violence such as those have never been the first to start. I mean, there are many which we talk about in various parts of South Sudan. So what is the government willing to do uniquely that can attract support from the communities? I know there are gaps, I know there are funding issues, but strategy-wise, planning-wise, action-wise, we have not seen something significant happen. So we're trying to wonder here, if situation happens like that, do we spend too much money on the security other than the civilian part of response to health issues, or what do we do? So I think those are the few things that I just want to talk about that. But of course, one thing that also probably has impacted responses from either communities, governments, and NGOs is to do with the lack of services. And one of the biggest services is infrastructure. And you know for sure where that incident happens in Abienam is a region where the oil is
Rich. It's rich in
rich oil. So, of course, it's a lot that we need to ponder about, because if those regions that have the resources are not even able to be developed, even to be able to get money to be earmarked for health services so that they can help in responding to some of those security crises, then a lot is to be desired.
Okay, Baba, just thank you so much. We shall go for a short break, then we come back and continue with our discussion.
Attention, attention. Higher than normal flood levels are predicted this season. Prepare now and stay informed. Keep your family safe. Listen to early warning alerts on your radio. Act today to stay safe tomorrow.
This message is brought to you by the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation under the Regional Climate Resilience Program for Eastern and Southern Africa with funding from the World Bank.
Attention, attention, community. Malaria is dangerous, malaria kills, but malaria can be prevented. The Ministry of Health, UNICEF, and partners are bringing long-lasting treated mosquito nets to your homes through a door-to-door distribution campaign. These nets are for your protection. Remember, long-lasting mosquito nets are not for sale. They are free and clearly marked. Too many families receive mosquito nets but do not use them every night. Sleeping under a mosquito net every night protects children, pregnant mothers, and their unborn babies and parents from malaria. To keep your net effective, tie it up or fold it during the day, keeping your home tidy and your net in good condition so that it protects you for many years. Remember, do not wash your new net before sleeping under it. First hang it in the shade inside your house for at least 2 to 3 hours to air out the chemical. Wash your net only when it is dirty, not more than 3 times a year, and always dry nets away from direct sunlight, bushes, and fences. If you see anyone using the nets for fishing, farming, or selling, report immediately to your local leaders or health workers, or call the toll-free number 6666. Protect your family, protect your children. Every night, sleep under a mosquito net. Clear bushes and remove stagnant water around your home where mosquitoes breed. Take your children for malaria vaccination as advised by health workers to strengthen their protection. Together, we can stop malaria. For more information, call the Ministry of Health toll-free number 6666. This message is brought to you by the Ministry of Health with support from WHO, UNICEF, and partners.
Good morning, it's iRadio.
مرحبا بكم من جديد، ونحن لسه متواصلين هنا في ديدون الصباحي، ومبسوطين جدا في هذا الصباح الجميل انه يكون معنا في داخل الاستوديو الاستاذ جيمس بوبويا، وهو CEO بتاع انستيتوت او معهد بتاع السياسات والريسيرش او البحث والبحوث. واحنا في صباح ده بنتكلم يمكن كمثال الاحداث بتاع بيمنم اللي حصل، يمكن قتل فيه انفس كثيره وفي مجروحين، واحنا سمينا في التقرير اللي كان عرضه لنا الزميل مدرما جميز بابويا. This is not the first time. Like South Sudan, this incident has been on and on and on. In recent weeks, we also witnessed issues in Ayot, in Jonglei State, and in also many parts of the country. In Tonj, for example, intercommunal conflict happening there. As a civil society activist, like how are these few incidences left and right, impacting on the political environment even in the country, or let's say on the development of South Sudan?
Yeah, there I mean, the number of incidents that happens. I just want to outline some of these incidences. For example, when Pope was here a few years ago, there was a terrible incident in Kajukeji, where a number of women and children were slaughtered. In Ye, for example, a number of incidents happens. In Yambio, many things happens. In Ayot, of course, of recent, of course, statistics tells a number of people have been killed, but of course, they're pointing to the hands of the government of forces that have actually been doing that. We've seen the incident in Abienams. We've seen incidences along in a BA area, for example, for many years that incident has been happening between communities. Some of those incidents happens with the support of the government forces. Others happen with the IO, coming on board, and others
or even
happen,
some militias that are in between.
Yes. Of course, we've seen what happened before, even in the Rumbek or Lake State area, right, where most of the youths are armed to teeth. And they are the ones that have been instigated to cause some of those violences. Some of them are with aid of government, opposition, or other elements, as we talk about. Now, what happens is that most of the community members, including the young people, are watching how governments actually respond to some of those issues. And because of lack of accountability, some of those incidences, it encourages many of those youths to continue to cause problems in the villages that they're living in. If you, for example, look at the case of Abienam, where youths from one area going several kilometers into another area and they cause the havoc and they go back. Not only in those areas, but if you look at, for example, the very many conflicts that happens in Pibor with the Murles fighting, either the Nuers or the Dinka Boers or something like that. So it has been more structured in a way. They receive political support and military support. They receive intelligence from sections within the government structures, or sections within the opposition structures. So that becomes the practices of intercommunal violence, subnational violence, and also national conflicts that are more formal in nature. And because of lack of accountability, as I talked about, and because of lack of punishment, and because of lack of strategy, those issues continue to manifest themselves. And let me tell you, just watch this issue. If it's not properly resolved, of course, people are just waiting, and then they'll do another revenge attack, right? And the same situation continues.
The same cycle.
It's going to continue. And that's why we talk about cycle of violence in South Sudan. It looks more isolated because it's not national in nature, but it gives examples for others who wanted to plan for similar things to happen, to say, oh, it's going to be, we'll do it because there's no immediate consequences. Because in South Sudan, where there's no justice and where there's no immediate consequences, people take impunity into their hands. And they succeed at some point, right? Because they don't care. They don't see hope in terms of vision of a country that will be, people rally around that kind of ideology and vision. They are informed because, for example, if I give an example, in Kenya, before when Kenya gained its independence, Kenya was almost in a situation of a lot of conflicts, and the reason why that was happening is because there were three things that were manifesting in the context at the time. One is the issue to do with ignorance. A majority of the people of South Sudan, especially in the rural areas, are more ignorant about what's happening for their own lives in the future. Number two is diseases. Most of the diseases have impacted communities not to really be able to think about the future. Number three is poverty. So because of lack of poverty, lack of education, lack of services, and lack of exposure, for example. I've been in Mandeng one day. I went to do some research. I work in Mandeng and that area to the border to Ethiopia, and I told them that the peace agreement has been extended, and they have no idea that there's an extension. There are people who still believe that John Garang is still the president in this country. I have no idea that there is a new cabinet in place, there's a new speaker or something like this. So because of lack of information that these communities are having, they only know what is going on within their own communities and the next community that they're going to attack. So what does it take for the government to really begin to create access to information and exposure? Because we believe in civil society and people who do policy analysis, such as myself, that without access to information, it will be difficult for people in those areas to have alternative narratives and alternative information that could help them to begin to decide otherwise. So, and that's the reason, and I promise you, we've been interacting with a lot of young people coming from villages in South Sudan. When they come into Juba, their perspective changes. Because they know, oh, there's life. Yeah. Right now, as I'm talking about, most of those youths, they think there's no life. Because either you just have a gun and you want to kill, and that's it.
Or you go and raid the cattle and pay the dowry.
Yes, yes. There is no productive activities. I wrote a paper on moving beyond conflict by young people in terms of providing livelihoods. Because we tested that when you see most of the guys who are warmongers in the villages, they come into urban areas, they started to sell, mobile money, and you ask them, are you ready to be convinced to go back and fight in the village? They say no, because I'm used to counting money every day, and I know that I will be protecting my business. So you can see if the conflict is around protecting their own livelihoods and businesses, the situation would have been different.
So
but that's not the case.
Yeah,
yes.
The mindset has already changed.
Yes, yes. And one of the biggest issues from the analytic perspective, which I really want to ask the governments at the various level more to take it more seriously, is to do with the role of the national government in terms of its own function, the role of the states, and the role of the counties, the role of the PIAMs, bombers, and even the chiefs. To what extent have the government at those various structures actually helping the local chiefs, right, to work with women and youths and elderly in resolving their own problems? Most of the chiefs have become like partisan leaders in those communities, right? Instead of becoming unifier, they are becoming more of promoter of conflicts in those communities. And we've seen, for example, attempts where, especially when there was this conflict between ABA people and Warap and Twitch, where the chiefs were mobilized to come and talk to the president. They make just a political statement and said, oh, we're going to go back and work with the communities to bring peace. But of course, they don't have the power to really be able to execute peace-building programs in those areas. So even when we talk about dialogues, if these dialogues are not politically sanctioned and there is no political will, those dialogues just remains in an avenue of people getting money, and that's it. We've seen one day we were in Rumbek, where they brought the Pakam and the Apuk youths to Rumbek for a peace dialogue, right? And these youths, they leave their guns in the neighborhood. So as soon as they finish the dialogue, they go back and get their guns and they continue to fight, right? So it's not adding up, and I think that's the reason why there's going to be a strategy. In Uganda, for example, Uganda came up with, when there's a conflict within northern Uganda, Uganda came up with a program called the Northern Uganda NUSAF, Northern Ugandan Action Fund. Right? This action fund was to help in alleviating poverty within the areas that have been conflict affected, right? And lots of the young people begin to receive funds. And while they're receiving funds, governments also come up with a policy of how they reduce poverty in terms of tax issues, access to education, access to vocational training, so that these people become, competency. It's increasing those communities, and they begin to understand the value of money and then how to begin to run their own businesses. At the same time, while this is happening, governments coming up with infrastructure projects, right, opening up markets and things like that. So people begin to have access to markets and things like that. So because of that kind of program, the changes are started to occur, and we talk about transformation of those communities, right? Right now, Uganda is doing something called the Paris Development Model, meaning every Paris or every Boma or every sub-Boma will need to have access to resources, money. And the youths are beginning to form community groups, and they have access to money. They can do either vocational in the schools or all kind of businesses that they do, or fishing, or they do, construction activities, or they do agricultural activities. So those activities keep the youths more active and once engaged. Engaged, and their minds, they are preoccupied in terms of what economic activities they're going to do the next day. Instead of think about there's the meeting here to go and kill so and so, right? So to deconstruct the minds of our people, the young people, from becoming more warmongers to economic mongers, a lot of things are required from the government. But currently the government is broke down in terms of who should we maneuver out of the government, right? They have failed to implement most of the provisions of the peace agreement, right?
Yeah.
So if there's a chaos, and I want to say again, if there's a chaos at national government level, if there's a chaos at the state government level, there will never be sanity and stability at local level. Because right now, we expected the government to be, thinking about strategies, right? And they're struggling. I mean, we've seen the SPLM Secretary General who was talking more elusively when the Minister of Finance was sworn in a few weeks ago, that they wanted to see if they can have like $2 or $3 million for testing agriculture, right? No, we have a national budget. Put the money in national budget. We have the youth enterprise funds. Put the money in youth enterprise funds. So we get this money to be accessed by the youth people. Go and begin to engage the youths with activities, not luring them to defect to SPLM, to defect to IO, or these are the things that we're not supposed to be talking about those issues by now.
The other issue is this, looking at the series of these incidences, there are some basic and natural steps that are supposed to be taken, supposed to be followed up. Like, for example, forming an investigative committee to go and inquire what happened and who are the perpetrators, and to follow the legal process, legal justice for the victims who have been injured, who have been killed, families, and all this. And I think a little have been done on this.
I want to say this. I am not an advocate of investigation committees, because for the last 18 years, before we got our independence, until we got our independence, there has been number of investigation committees formed either by the counties, by the states, or by the national government, right? Those investigation committees have killed justice to be attained, right? Because people say by the time you formed a committee, you've already had to kill the whole process. So I am not an advocate, and I don't have a trust in committees.
So
however,
what else?
I am an advocate for government strengthening the rule of law. We need to see judicial structures. The courts must be strengthened, and that's the reason why, when you look at, for example, Kenya, when there's a dispute, people are able to rush to the court. I want to see the local courts functioning, the state courts functioning, the county courts functioning, national court functioning, so that they begin to address justice issues. I want to see somebody being, apprehended, jailed, taken to court, and charged, and the person end up in jail, right? If you begin to see that, then the justice system at local level begin to function, and people begin to fear. But because there's no justice at local level, there's no justice at county level, there's no justice at state and national level. I mean, I was shocked. If you look at, for example, the amount of money they spent at the case of Lakmajar, right? This course became more effective. It's only court meeting twice, 3 or 4 times a week. But if you look at our own courts at local level, they're not meeting because they're not being facilitated, right? So we need to see well-trained judges, well-trained magistrates, well-trained legal practitioners, and deploy to all those issues, so that we begin to see local level grievances addressed at local level, where it's not possible the local level to refer to the state, where it's not possible to refer to the national level. This is not functioning. Some of these court cases that are happening, they call it mobile courts, are not being facilitated by the government. It's UNUMIS. UNUMIS is not the government that facilitated. So therefore, there will never be sustainability, right? So we expect the government to really begin to think about some of those issues, because if you don't strengthen, because to be honest with you, if you go to some of the villages, you will not even see police in those areas. So there's no security structures such as police at local level, at state level, at county level. So the security structures needs to be functioning, the judicial structure needs to be functioning, the other structures of service delivery need to be functioning, and there must be accountability and transparency within all those structures. But above all, there must be programs of government that keeps some of those people more engaged. But this program is actually not there, you see. So that's the reason why it becomes catastrophic in a way, that people want to take the law into their hands because they think justice delayed is justice denied, and therefore the best option is just to have a shortcut to that process. So I think those are the mechanisms that I thought could be important in terms of moving the country forward.
تمام. معنا بابويا جيمس هنا في داخل الاستوديو. أنا ما نسينا المكالمات بتاعكم، لكن يمكن في دقائق شوية إننا نمشي نشيل المكالمات عشان نقدر كمان نسمع بعض الأسئلة من عندكم. بابويا قد يدينا الصورة العامة عن الأحداث الصغيرة والحوادث البسيطة الحاصل في جنوب السودان ممكن يأثر كيف في عملية بتاع السلام، عملية بتاع التنمية، عملية بتاع حفظ الأمن حتى في داخل جنوب السودان. فنمشي نشيل المكالمة. ألو ألو أي راديو. Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Hi, Mama Maria.
Mama Maria, ita lela mahzus ese.
Ana filmu de studio, na filmu ta kama.
Tamam.
Ita yano de na studio. Aina motani. Aina nandi muskila maisa kunna kubar alijidami nande. Ita kunya ena tani. Yala haja linne woni fu kanna de kilita kunamu. Ita kun fi barnamadi na ita kunya entanna kalam alina der minita kun kanna fu de katulu jede yala jini sudan de kutun di sun de kimia kana de katulu ata de alela de gale biga miten wo barade nia tiso titin ya jama yala jede biga jini sudan de kutun de fadulu di sun ya der amni ya jama na der awal haja أنا يومي دائما دون شيء أنا قالوا كما ترنا في جنوب السودان أنا دار أمني أفجانا اللي بكاتل لنا ده بكل سبب أمني أمني كانت أنا برامل الجراح أنا بعمل أكل علينا بزيارة بإذن أنا باكل أنا دار سكيورتي كنت تمام وأنا دار كنت أكون يبينا مواطنين أنا حاجة كل كربان في جوبا أنا ناس كله في ذاك جوبا يعني في جبل يعني ما تقول براءة كنا أصلا مثل ولا كنا ما في نبى سميها تدبس يجيبيني يعني كان حاجة وادا إنه كل شيء تدبس يجيبيني يلا لا كنا ما بعمل أمني أصلا بروح أمن الجراح أنا بسكن لنا ما في كتير ما في شيء والناس جت على جت سكن لده إذا كنت يعني يعني أبوي تكون جيبي لا الناس جكاتلو بعدين الناس جكاتلو بعدين تكون أبانا وايد ما تقول جامي نبارة كراهية بين السنة في كل يوم في ترابيجا aku manak manis kanana galsan manis apa am kita pun apa badun salam kali pun dia apa salam dia ya خلينا في السودان
تمام
salam كلنا في الجنوب
تمام شكرا ماما ماريا من اجل المداخله بتاعك اي راديو
hello
yes
good evening good morning
please be precise
صباح النور
منو معنا؟
Diang,
please be short and precise with your questions.
Actually, you have activists in the studio that require us to give a comment, but I don't know why they don't want me to be short.
Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to say that to the activists in the studio that this country lacks a lot of things. And by the way, we lack activists who can actually pressure the government. You know, most of the world countries, I have seen that civil society activists pressure the government, political parties pressure the government, the ruling government, to do right thing. In Uganda, what happened in Biomnom was the fear of ignorance. You know, look at the Mayom County and Biomnom. For these people to come out from Mayom to go and attack in Biomnom, I think there's no justification for the government to tell us that nobody has seen them. The county commissioner of Mayom County will not actually convene us that they have not seen these people moving out from Mayom to come and attack in the Biomnom. And also the government of ruling administrative area will never say that they were not aware that these people are coming. But out of ignorance, they were sitting down until that number of people's lives has been lost. So we need to tell the government clearly that because fighting in mouth is not like taking arms and shoot them. We are not like people who fight in them, but we are telling them the truth. Government have totally failed on his duties and responsibility in this country. Because security is the most thing to be strengthened by any government in the world. But I never seen a government that sit down, never paid the soldiers, never organized the soldiers, never know the hotspot areas where the people, the government, the soldiers has to be, to sure that these people actually prevent it not to attempt to do anything. Now you know this communal conflict happening here and there is our opinion of the government, of the leadership of the country, and they will never deny that.
So you mean it's
get done? Stay with us, machineries and weapons, and attack themselves. Eat out of government wedlock and ignorance, especially the government military general. So they are the cause of what happened in the country. They are the cause of what is now going on in South Sudan. So I'm asking the ICP. First, we have known now this is the hour of failure from the government. It's hour of ignorance. Nothing justification will stay. Nothing, anything that we have accused it happened in Vietnam or another places in South Sudan. What do you think will the way forward? As long as the government remains ignoring what is supposed to be duties and responsibility. If the government remains ignoring its duties and responsibility, what South Sudan civil society do to make sure that this government is still, they have to be told what they are supposed to do.
Okay. Thank you so much, Diang Deng from Wow, with your questions. Hello, iRadio. iRadio?
Yes, Michael.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
And good morning to guests in the studio. I'm Joseph from Munich.
Good morning to
Joseph. You're welcome, Joseph. Please go straight to your question.
Yes, first of all, I want to say condolences to people who were killed in that particular county. Mine is a comment, and I want to be brief also. When you talk about that administrative area were from unity state, and their comment in 2020, they were called for national government to be separate because they are being killed by their brothers in their state. They say that let them kill us as a separate administrative area because we are under their administration, and they are always killing us. That was the issue that allowed that administrative area to be separate from unity state. And they are part of unity state and they are part of the Western Upper Nile. Secondly, it is the government who are always condemned, saying we are condemned what happened in that area and there's no solution. And I've seen the involvement of the government. The government of the state are always involved when they talk about that. Look at those people accused from Mayom, and the government of Unity State is not used from Mayom, and they are criminals. Do you think thousands of criminals are in that county? That one I've seen is the involvement. Also here in the country, there is a people who always attack civilians, and later on they be integrated as a general government. Some are being given the administrative area to be chief administrators through that. So we see that there is a way of encouragement from the national level that if you did that, you later be a bigger person in the country. So
do you have the explanation is fine, but do you have any question for our guest in the studio?
That's what I'm coming for. So what I'm saying there is what happened.
We also give chance to others. Thank you for your contribution.
Mike, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
David Mugo from Wow.
Yes, David, please, welcome.
My question to the guys in the studio. The Constitution of South Sudan says that there is what is so-called right to life. The role of the government is to protect the life of the citizens with their property. Now the people are being killed randomly. Where is the role of the government here? Number two, administrative areas are under responsibility of the president. People are talking about condemnation. They only condemn. Where is the action here to protect the citizen? We are talking about security guarantee. Where is our role here? And people talk about the election of 2026, and those who are dying now, over 200, are the board of other politicians who are supposed to represent the people. Now people are finished. Whom are they going to rule as the politician of this country? The country is for the public, it's for the people, for the citizens. It is not a land that is called country. It is not only an empty forest that the politician can rule as the country. As they are called a president of the republic or a politician representing people in the parliament, the people are still alive, not the dead people. Now, as a civil society, where is our right here? Because we don't get the president, our MPs are not talking about it, we don't even come across other honorables. As are the people concerned, what are you presenting now to the government for the rest not to die like those who have passed already?
Okay.
Thank you.
Chris. Thank you, David, for your questions. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you so much. I just really want to thank so much for some of the comments and concerns and the questions that have been raised. I want to respond, for example, the question raised by Mama Maria in terms of the people being killed and what needs to be done. I think one of the way forward, as we talk about the peace agreement, was that by now we should be having 83,000 unified forces. And these unified forces are supposed to be deployed throughout South Sudan to secure the borders and begin to, strengthen security and stability in accordance with the requirements of the Constitution and the requirements of the peace agreement. That appears to have failed. And I think that has significantly impacted the ability of government to talk about security and stability throughout South Sudan. Because the current army is not army that is in accordance with the Constitution. They're loyal to individuals within government. They're loyal to individuals within the opposition circles, but they're not loyal to the Constitution and therefore the people of South Sudan. So they're more tribalistic security apparatus. When we talk about security, we talk about the police, we talk about the national security, we talk about the intelligence services, we talk about the national army. This is not longer the structure that could have responded to some of those issues. So the future lies on unified security forces, unified police, unified CID, unified army, unified national security, and so on and so forth. Also, we talk about unified structures of governance. And I think one of the issues that the colleague will talk about here is something to do with the failure of the national government strengthening the states to talk to each other. There's no inter-county, collaborations and coordinations, right? For example, I've never seen Commissioner A talking to Commissioner B discussing about security. I've never talked about the state, the administrative area administrator talking to the governor on security issues. Some of them have been just like facelift, but not something that is more anchored in strategy, anchored in policy, anchored in the rule of law, and that it's backed up by political will. And one of the guy, Joseph, was talking about revenge killing and what happens. How come that people from Mayom are not aware that youths are going to kill the neighborhoods, or from Rang administrative area not able to understand what's going on there? The reason is because they may know what's going on, but they thought there's going to be a clash, and that clash is going to create equal killing, right? But because there was balance, there was imbalance of power, so one community then became more powerful, killing more from the other region. So the issue about lack of political will is also something that is causing some of those issues. And of course, the culture of revenge has been deeply rooted. And in South Sudan, as I said, to attain justice, whether social justice, economic justice, or historical justices, or environmental justices, people believe killing is the only way to go. So I think government and civil society and different political actors needs to find, and including religious actors, needs to find ways of how do we disintensify revenge killing. And I think one thing that I like from David is, what are the minimum security guarantees that the national government and state governments needs to provide in those counties, so that people begin to believe that the security is eminent in those areas, and therefore they're able to engage in activities. I mean, one of the issues is, for example, this intercommunal conflict, but also there are conflicts. For example, you see recently in Ye, in terms of cattle, the government is aware and they help, instead of taking actions to drive away the cattle keepers from agricultural areas, they encourage, pastoralists to go into farming, areas, so that they keep to eat their crops and discourage the farmers not to cultivate. So what happens to these farmers who are not, having access to guns? They will resort to begin buying guns and begin to cause conflicts in those areas. So I think a lot needs to be done, and I think this incident should be a turning point in the history of South Sudan to begin to resolve localized problems, including intercommunal conflicts, subnational violence, and even national violence.
Okay, as we are also winding up this show, the country is preparing, whether people like it or not, people are preparing for the election to come, because there is no way, all the indications in the region or even within the country, there is no way for another extension of this peace agreement. We cannot continue being ruled for years with just peace agreement without a national constitution. So what does all these incidents mean as we are heading towards election? How does it going to impact on this process?
Yeah, this discussion of elections is more important for the country, but it's more elusive given the context right now. One, even these politicians who talk about elections, they are not able to go to their own villages, even to attend funeral prayers, right? Leave alone even organizing communities for campaigns. So this is concerning to me, that the very people who cannot even go to the villages, they're talking about elections. That's number one. Number two, the people who are talking boldly are people who are scared. I mean, if you look, for example, some of the politicians, I don't want to mention their names, who lost elections even in their own villages in the previous election 2010, and they're the ones who are championing elections in this country. So there are significant requirements, just quickly, that if the government really want to talk about elections, is one, to organize this dialogue, and I want to say dialogue that includes even the forces of, the actors such as Rakmachar and the rest, to all be pardoned. They are brought together to have a broadened discussions on electoral framework. They have to discuss about some of those requirements and then integrate them into new constitution. And once they have a new constitution, then they have to amend the electoral act. Once they amend the electoral act, they have at least a legal basis to talk about elections. Number two, then they have to go and restructure the electoral commissions. Then they begin to provide funds to the electoral commissions. They have to unify the army as quickly. In 6 months, if they can unify the army and deploy them around South Sudan, then that will be good, because unifying the army and deploying them will also create some of the security confidence measures. Number three, they have to create conditions for political pluralism. Without political pluralism, that means I talked to some of these political leaders who are oppositions. I mean, look at what happened. Lamakol went to SSBC for a talk show, and the government said, no, don't allow the airing of his own speech. So this is just one example. These politicians will never go and be allowed even to campaign, right? So something needs to happen in terms of a roadmap for elections. So it's not just a matter of talking about elections, right? It's not a one thing that you just tick a box. It's a lot that's required.
It's a process.
Yeah, it's a process.
Yeah.
So I've never seen that process right now. You see, the president formed the electoral dialogue committee. Recently, I saw that he has also formed another high-level committee headed by the chief of security advisor, right? So there's a lot of ill and good intentions, and ill or bad intentions are also impacting the way. Today we talk about March, and election is supposed to happen in December. Let us wait to see, and I promise you, you will never see elections in December. If it happens, God is in South Sudan.
Baboya James, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate, and it has been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, and I'm happy always for you hosting me on behalf of the people of South Sudan.
Good. Thanks. شكرا لكل المستمعين اللي كانوا بيتابعونا من الصباح في دون الصباحي. شكرا كثير لزميل أوان موسس من وراء الأجهزة بتاعة الاتصالات والسوشيال ميديا، وكمان بنشكر باريا جونسون في إعداد الحلقة، وشكرا لكل الناس اللي شاركونا في هذا الصباح جميل. أنا كنت معكم مايكل أتيد. واصلوا الاستماع
facing the country. We do not want rumor mongering or information that is regarded as hearsays. We advocate for messages of peace and unity among the people of South Sudan. This is iRadio, your eye on South Sudan. مباشر من جوبا على الهواء وعلى الإنترنت.
ده آي راديو، عينك على جنوب السودان. صباح الخير عليكم، رمضان كريم والصيام مبارك عليكم كلكم. أنا ديكو دي أندرو وده أخبار الصباحية من آي راديو ليوم الليلة. صرح دوغ الدين بور مفوض مقاطعة مرلوط في أعلى النيل بأنه لا يزال ملتزم بدعم العاملين في مجال الرعاية الصحية، وقد تعهد بتقديم حوافز بمجرد استقرار عائدات النفط واستلام النسبة المتوقعة البالغ 3%. وجه إيمانويل عادل أنتوني حاكم ولاية الاستوائية الوسطى هيئة التعدين الحكومية المنشأة حديثا بتنظيم أنشطة تعدين والحد من الاستخراج الغير قانوني للموارد وضمان السلامة البنية التحتية وإصدار التراخيص اللازمة. رحب كيم جاي ممثل جنوب السودان لدى مجموعة شرق أفريقيا بخط توحيد العرف الإقليمي، واصفا إياه بأنه خطوة هامة نحو تيسير التجارة في جميع أنحاء المنطقة. ده كان عناوين الأخبار، والآن إلى تفاصيل النشرة بقدم لكم ديكو دي أندرو. أكد مفوض مقاطعة ملوت في أعلى النيل دوغ دين بور التزامه بدعم العاملين في القطاع الصحي، ودعهد بتقديم حوافز لهم حال استقرار عائدة النفط واستلام النسبة المتوقعة البالغة 3%. وقد أدلى بهذا التعهد خلال زيارة تفقدية لمستشفى ملوط ضمن سلسلة من التقييمات الميدانية التي أجراها خلال الأسبوع الفات لتقييم مؤسسات الخدمة العامة في جميع أنحاء المقاطعة. وقدم مديرو المستشفى تقارير بتسلط الضوء على التحديات الرئيسية اللي بتأثر على تقديم الخدمات، ومنها إعطال في المعدات الطبية ونقص في المحاليل الوردية والنقص في الأدوية الأساسية. وتفقد المفوض عدد أقسام واستمع إلى إحاطات من الطاقم الطبي والإداري حول الاحتياجات العاجلة والمجالات ذات الأولوية هل بتتطلب اهتمام فوري. وشكر دوغ دين الطاقم الطبي وإدارة في المستشفى على تفهيمهم رغم ظروف العمل والمعيشة الصعبة، وشاد بخدمتهم المستمرة للمجتمع حتى في ظل تأخير الصرف الرواتب. وأوضح أنه بيتم النظر في تقديم الحوافز للعاملين في القطاع الصحي على تستقر عائدات النفط ويتم تخصيص الحصة المتوقع البالغ 3%. وأشار إلى أن هذا الإجراءات بتهدف إلى تحسين ظروف العمل وتحفيز المواطنين وضمان الموظفين وضمان استمرار تقديم الخدمات الصحية الأساسية في مقاطعة ملوط. أصدر حاكم ولاية الاستوائية الوسطى إيمانويل عادل أنتوني توجيهات لهيئة التعدين الحكومي منشأ حديثا بتنظيم أنشطة التعدين والحد من استخراج الغير قانوني للموارد وضمان السلامة البيئة وإصدار التراخيص اللازمة. وصرع هذا التوجيهات خلال رؤوس مراسم أداء اليمين الدستوري لقيادة هيئة في جوبا، وأدى بفرانسيس لسامو موري اليمين الدستوري بصفته المفوض العام، بينما أدى معاليه تابان كلمن أوليفر اليمين الدستوري بصفته نائب المفوض العام. وحث الحاكم عادل القيادة الجديدة على العمل بالتعاون وثيق مع وزارة التعدين الوطنية ووزارة التجارة والصناعة بالولاية لتعزيز التوجيهات السياسية وتحديد الموارد المعدنية الغير مستغلة في الولاية الاستوائية الوسطى. وأكد أن الإدارة السليمة لقطاع التعدين من شأنها أن تساهم في توليد إيرادات تمويل مشاريع بنية تحتية رئيسية بما في ذلك المدارس والمستشفيات والطرق. وفي خطاب قبول المنصب تعهد المفوض العام بضمان المساءلة والعمليات الفعالة داخل الهيئة للخدمة المصالحة العامة. وحضر الحفلة كبير المسؤولين الحكوميين بما فيهم نائب الحاكم وزير شؤون مجلس الوزراء والمالية والتخطيط والاستثمار والتجارة والصناعة، بالإضافة إلى ممثلين من المجتمع المحلي. وفي آخر خبر محلي، رحب كيم جاي ممثل جنوب السودان لدى مجموعة شرق أفريقيا بخطة توحيد الإجراءات الجمركية الإقليمية، وصفا إياه بأنه خطوة هامة نحو تيسير التجارة في جميع أنحاء المنطقة. وبيقدم النظام الجديد ضمان جمركية إقليمية موحدة، ما يعني أن التجار ووكلاء التخليص الجمركي لن يحتاجوا بعد الآن إلى حصول على ضمانات منفصلة في كل دول تمر عبرها البضائع. وبيقول جاي إن من المتوقع أن يساهم هذا الإصلاح في تقليل التأخيرات على الحدود وخفض التكاليف وتعزيز القدرة التنافسية لجنوب السودان في كل من الواردات والصادرات. وبيضيف أن ضمان الموحدة قد تخفف أيضا من الازدحام عند نقاط الدخول الرئيسية، بما في ذلك معبر النمر الحدودي، من خلال تبسيط الإجراءات الجمركية. وبتعقد القمة العادلة 25 لرؤساء الدولة المجموعة شرق أفريقيا يوم السبت المقبل 7 مارس في أروشا، وقد تتعهد جنوب السودان بمؤامرة أنظمة مع إطار جديد وضمان حماية الإيرادات الوطنية بموجب هذا الترتيبات. وفي الأخبار الدولية، أطلقت أثيوبيا مركز شرطة ذكية تجريبيا ضمن جهودها لتحديث الخدمات إنفاذ القانون. صمم المركز الجديد الواقع في هايبولي بأديس أبابا ليعمل دون مكتب استقبال تقليدي، بدلا من ذلك يمكن للجمهور الوصول إلى خدمة الشرطة عبر أجهزة لوحية تعمل باللمس مثبتة في كابين خاص. وعد هذا المشروع التجريبي جزء من أجندة الإصلاح الرقمي الأوسع للحكومة برئاسة رئيس الوزراء أبي أحمد. وتواجد ضباط الشرطة بزيهم الرسمي حاليا في المركز لإرشاد المستخدمين أثناء تطبيق النظام الجديد. وفي إفادات وكالة الأنباء الناشطة حقوق الإنسان ومقرها الولايات المتحدة بمقتل 1097 مدني في إيران منذ 28 فبراير. وأضافت الوكالة أن من بين هؤلاء 181 طفلا دون سن العشر. وأفادت وكالة الأنباء بأن عدد الإصابات بين المدنيين بلغ 5402 إصابة، من بينهم 100 طفل. وأشارت الوكالة إلى وقوع 104 هجمات على الأقل خلال 24 ساعة الماضية فقط، واستهدفت قواعد عسكرية ومراكز طبية ومناطق سكنية. ويجري حاليا مراجعة مئات الوفيات المبلغ عنها. بكده انتهى نشرة الأخبار من آي راديو، لكن نرجع نذكركم بأهم العناوين. صرح دوغ دينغ مفوض مقاطعة مولود في على النيل بأنه لا يزال ملتزم بدعم العاملين في مجال الرعاية الصحية، وقد تعهد بتقديم حوافز بمجرد استقرار عائدات النفط واستلام النسبة المتوقع البالغ 3%. وجه إيمانويل عادل أنتوني حاكم ولاية الاستوائية الوسطى هيئة التعدين الحكومية المنشأة حديثا بتنظيم أنشطة التعدين والحد من الاستخراج الغير قانوني للموارد وضمان السلام البيئة وإصدار التراخيص اللازمة. رحب كيم جاي ممثل جنوب السودان لدى مجموعة شرق أفريقيا بخطة توحيد العرف الإقليمي، واصفا إياه بأنه خطوة هامة نحو تيسير التجارة في جميع أنحاء المنطقة. بكده انتهى نشرة الأخبار من آريا للصباح بتاع الليلة. إذا عندك أي مناسبة أو خبر انت داير آريا يعمل لك فيه تغطية، ممكن ترسل لنا رسالة في الرقم التالي 09 25 28 70 78، أو برضو تعمل متابعة على منصة إكس آريا جوبا كلمة واحدة، أو قم بزيارة موقعنا على الإنترنت www.iradio.org، أو ممكن تشارك في قناة آريا على اليوتيوب آي راديو ساوث السودان. نيابة عن غرفة الأخبار والفريق الفني، أنا كنت معكم ديكو دي أندرو. واصلوا استماع على آي راديو عندكم على جنوب السودان.